The first one up is a presentation by Ken Gregory from Bad, is it Distro or Distro?
Well, actually, No Wave is our main entity.
No Wave, all right. And this is regarding the 2022 New York State law on marijuana stores in a municipality. And I want to just make something, before you get into it, Ken. A couple months ago, I see Janine Sanger here. Janine came in from Webster Health Network. And you also had Lexi in from the American Lung Association.
Correct.
And I'm going to say that that was a presentation to the town board on the con of the town staying in 2022. Ken, I'm going to assume that tonight is the counterpoint to that, the pro of why the town.
That's cool, yeah.
Okay. Town board decisions, it's incumbent on the town board to look at both the pros and cons of something like this. And that's why we are having both sides present at these workshops. And I just want to make sure everybody understands tonight that this is not a public hearing, so there is no chance for the public to get on the podium and give opine on their opinion on this.
Is there something coming at some point?
That will come at some point, yeah. So I just wanted to lay that out if anybody was here thinking that I want to give my 2 cents on this. That would come in the future, and since the year is only about 45 days from being done, the town board is going to have to decide by the end of the year if we are opting out for 2022, or if we are, Charlie, I think it's a default opt-in, but even in a default opt-in, the town board would probably be making some local law resolution on where and how many of these. Yeah. But that was a long preface, wasn't it, Bill?
As usual.
Yeah, that's my, you know, it's my charm. So, I'm not going to short you on your 15 minutes, all right?
I talk fast, So, I'm Ken Gregory, born off Dickinson Road here in Webster. Currently live with my wife and 2 kids off Gravel Road, 13 and 11. I actually brought my partner Brian Lane as well. We actually are owners of No Wave. We're currently a hemp processing facility. We're the only licensed hemp processor in Monroe County. We're actually breaking ground on a new facility Wednesday. Actually, we have a ceremony coming up Thursday. So just kind of want to give you a little bit of background by us. We are not pursuing a retail location in Webster. I'm not interested in that at all. I don't want to do retail. We're not going to be operating our business out of Webster. I'm here as a taxpayer and resident. Just want to be clear on that. Really, honestly, what came here is I love seeing Tom's kind of updates on the supervisor columns. You know, kind of got a little scared seeing some of the increase in taxes and kind of some of the language being used. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understood what recreational marijuana could potentially mean for this area. And I just want to be clear here. Your guys' decision is not whether or not to allow marijuana in Webster. It's coming regardless of whether you opt in or opt out. Home grow is going to be allowed. The transfer of marijuana between people is going to be allowed. Up to 3 ounce in possession is going to be allowed. So the decision really is to allow tax revenue in retail locations. That's what you're being asked to do at this time. I apologize, I was not at the con presentation, but I did speak to Tom a little bit about the potential revenue this could generate, and I want to make sure you guys had an accurate picture of that. So if we look at Colorado, they actually went with legalization back in 2014. Much different time in terms of cannabis across the United States, not just in Colorado. Every year it's beginning to become more and more acceptable, and I think it's important to use current accurate numbers as regards to what's being generated. So you can see, you know, 2020, you're just a little bit over $2 billion in revenue was generated in terms of the sale of recreational marijuana. On pace to absolutely destroy that for this year, and that trend line could not be more clear. It's growing every year. So I basically just took a pure resident per resident generation figure to kind of get a rough estimate. I think that's the fairest way to do it. If per resident Colorado is generating $391, we can get a rough idea of what that could mean for residents of Webster. My figures, I'm looking at roughly 3%, $537. 3% of the sale in Webster would go towards the town. right? So let's say you have a $100 share at the register, you guys are making $3 right over the town every single time. If you guys opt out, someone can actually deliver that to the town of Webster. You don't get paid, Rondequoit get paid, Penfield get paid, another municipality would. Does that make sense, everybody? Any questions on that? Real simple math here, pretty basic. In terms, again, was not here for the American Lung Association. I'm assuming you guys talked some of the pulmonary illnesses back in 2019. Show of hands, who remembers when vaping was killing everybody back in 2019? Anybody remember that? Huge e-cigarette scare back in the day. A couple years has passed since that point in time, and we've actually seen high levels of vitamin E acetate and associated with black market vaping products for recreational marijuana. It was a massive issue, a lot of confusion, a lot of unknowns at this, back in 2019. In terms of the actual lab testing, it's going to be key to preventing these types of products in terms of getting into the hands of users. The medical marijuana program in New York State does not allow for vitamin E acetate to be added into these products. And just kind of simplify that for you guys, vitamin E acetate is actually a cut that is added to vaping marijuana so the drug dealers can make more money. It's tale as old as time when it comes to dealing drugs, right? If they're cutting the product, they make more money. Significant harm can be done to an individual user. It's actually a fatty oil that gets vaporized and re-solidifies inside of their lungs. Absolutely devastating. There was a huge issue back in 2019 with it. They actually arrested two brothers out of Kenosha that were largely believed to be kind of the source of this, if you will. They had 98,000 unfilled cartridges, 32,000 were ready to go. They were selling these all across their country. Actually, their mom was the one that ratted on them and made sure this stopped. But we haven't seen as big, but it's an absolute problem that the recreational program does solve. You can't recall the products from a drug dealer, but if they're with the actual recreational marijuana program in New York State, it does mandate a third party test these products to identify that this substance isn't in it. And at any point in time, you can request that the product be taken to be tested on top of it. Just an update on today on these pulmonary illnesses. Laboratory tests do show vitamin E acetate and some THC cartridges or vaping is strongly linked to the Valley outbreak. Both the CDC and the FDA are concurring this, and the CDC and the FDA are recommending that people don't use THC-containing products from informal sources. They want these from a regulated, tested, licensed entity to be able to solve for some of these. So that's pretty strong language from both the CDC and the FDA to avoid the black market as much as possible. I would love to see Webster take the same standpoint. Buy these safe products from a licensed, regulated, lab-tested dealer who's going to be generating 3% of the overall Webster budget. Seems like a no-brainer to me. In terms of the actual law, like I mentioned before, the lab testing is listed right in the law. It's as clear as can be. You can't even test these yourself and claim the company manufacturing it that, oh yeah, it's not in there. We didn't put vitamin E acetate in there. They actually have to send it to a third party. The third party, completely on their own, has to have it. Most of the products you do see on the market have a QR scanner right on there. You can pop your phone on there, pulls up the lab test for that batch, shows you what's in it. Any thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, with the way that they're going to make, we're a GMP certified facility, which means we can sell products in pharmacies across the country. They require every piece of documentation from how we wash our mop heads to what goes in the products. You take one of our products as a serial number and it will be the same to the THC market. Everything will be track and trace. So they're actually going to put serial numbers on plants and track that process all the way through to final product creation. And then you will be required to do small batch testing as well as large batch testing in third party. If Webster right now, just so everybody knows, black market's already here. People are already making it in their kitchens. If you look at the small pop-ups that have been happening around the county, people say there's a certain amount of quantities of these cannabinoids in these products, and I'll tell you very clearly that they don't match what the people are saying when they make stuff in their homes. It is very difficult. We do it at our facility for CBD products. It's taken us 2 years to perfect. And people in their homes, they're making things that cause the issues that are happening on the streets.
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually staff an internal chemist, and we have testing in our own facility. We do it ahead of time before sending it to a third party, just to be safe on it. But again, the biggest thing here is that the local drug dealer on the corner, if he is selling a product that is tainted, that is hurting people, you can't recall it. You can't identify it. You can't, let a notice get out to the consumers to not use that product. So, I mean, I'd love to see the additional revenue generation as well as some of that risk mitigation from a health standpoint. Seems like a layout. In terms of the gray area, so let's say, as Tom had said before, that he was, leaning towards opting out. In that situation, Webster essentially is forfeiting that 3% revenue that could be generated for the entire budget. Gone, not going to happen. There's already local businesses with the intention of delivering product to areas around Monroe County once they get their license, which is essentially just going to circumvent everything you think from a moral or a health perspective you're doing by opting out. Literally just going to be costing Webster money. When we talk about going for a license, in terms of a retail license, right? We're expecting, what do you think, about a year from now, license application begins?
I would say, I was at a session this weekend with a lot of the legislators that are right. I was at a weekend event down in New York City where they actually had the legislators talking to all of us as CBD processors and growers, as well as actually black market dealers across the state. They were brought to a conference to discuss what the actual market is out there and help with these regulations. So I would say right now, it looks like from the minute the first regulations are out, it is a minimum of 5 months just through legislation. So we're looking probably at late 2022 or early 2023 for the licensing to be out to everybody.
So let's call it late 2022, right? Webster decides to opt out by the end of the year. The state's really setting you guys up for a horrible decision. This is not your fault, just for the record. So let's say the state says you got till the end of this year to opt out, right? You opt out. Any person applying for a retail license will not put Webster down because you've opted out. 2 years from now, if you want to go back and opt in and think, you know what, we really missed out, Ironwood's just banging out, absolutely crushing revenue, we can do what we want as a municipality. If at that point you decide to opt into it, there may be no additional license given out at that point in time. And I can guarantee no one will put down an application for Webster if they're opted out. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. You're going to dedicate your resource and your planning to a municipality that's going to allow that business to be there in the first place. The transfer to person is massive. We're already seeing shops, selling T-shirts and gifting marijuana on the side. There's been some pushback by the Cannabis Management Board, but until it plays out in the courts, in terms of gifting marijuana or transferring it, there is a loophole that is there currently that's going to be a problem for a municipality that opts out. Let's see here. And again, the possession for up to 3 ounces at a time. I don't know if any of you are cannabis users here today, but 3 ounces of marijuana, that's a decent amount. That is substantial for an individual to be able to possess at any point in time. And if Webster, again, does opt out, it does not change that they're allowed to possess that on their person at any point in time within Webster. To summarize where we are, roughly, conservatively, 2.75% of the overall budget is what we're looking at, and that's based on the projected Colorado revenue produced this year. It doesn't include next year, the following year, 10 years from now. At this point, you're essentially at the end of prohibition on alcohol. The market has the potential for that type of revenue generation. Just want to be clear on that. The license applications with the ability to actually generate in the future, it's easy to say now, well, we can just opt back in down the road, but in practice, it doesn't work like that. And a lab-tested product with specific ingredients, limiting the risks of the black market. I mean, you're doing this, you're very rarely, from a politician's standpoint, you have the opportunity to generate revenue for your citizens as well as protect them at the same point in time. Any questions?
You do talk fast.
I definitely talk. I want to make sure you have time to ask, Tom.
Right, as fast as you were talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
You think he's Joe Herbst's son?
No, I love it. If there's questions from at least the prior presentation, some of the cons of these, I'd love to hear them out. And if there's a reservation of holding up, your decision isn't a moral aspect on whether or not individuals should be using marijuana. You guys are being asked by the state to decide if you want to generate that revenue with a retail storefront in the area. That's ultimately what the decision is. I want to be clear on that.
And just remember too, when you're talking about opting in or out, you're talking about smoking lounges. So if you decide you want to, for instance, take smoking out of public parks, now all you're going to do is create people that are going to have parties at their houses, THC parties. They're going to have edibles, they're going to have smokes, you're going to have these events happening within Webster. Would you like to have it in a more controlled setting? Also, security. Our facility that we're building, we just broke ground on a $4 million facility, like we said, behind the airport. We have to have fencing on that facility. We have to have armed security in that facility if we get a THC license. We have to have 24-hour closed captioning. That's the same thing for your dispensaries. So your dispensaries, if they come in your town, are basically to be set up like your banks. Same security measures and everything. You're going to have the exact same security measures that a dispensary required by the state as you do every bank you have in your town. And I'm going to be very frank with everybody. I'm a big Fish fan, and I don't know if anybody knows about that scene very often, but I'm going to lay out something very clearly for you. If you go to a concert, to a Fish concert, and you ask the security guards, and you ask the people that are handing out food and drinks what their favorite people to come into town is, it's Fish because it's a psychedelic, and it's a lot of people who enjoy cannabis primarily, and not much alcohol. You ask them about any country band or any other band that comes into that facility, and they're pretty miserable. Let me put it in perspective for you. Okay. The smoking lounges would be a better place than the bars in your town eventually, as far as the environment you'll create around it. I just want to make sure that's a very good put in perspective for you.
I appreciate that, Brian, and your fish advocacy, but at this point in time, we are talking about whether or not we're going to allow recreational dispensaries at this point. Got to be some questions, guys. Got to be something.
The only question I have is, first comment. Mayor Byers from the village and myself toured your facility on Hall Road down near the airport.
Yep.
Very impressive. I mean, having audited businesses back years ago, it's legit. I mean, it is very impressive, the manufacturing, how you bring in product, how you process the product, your shipping, all of that stuff. It's impressive, and I know that, I think you're building the new one out in Dave Dunning's town. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think he's coming down Thursday. Is the groundbreaking.
So that's my comment. And once again, within the due diligence, I thought it appropriate that I should go out and see that facility. And Ken, you reached out to me after you read my article a couple months ago, where I said, without prejudice to moral or ethical or all that, I said at that time, my gut tells me back then it was to opt out. I've done due diligence since then. We're coming down to the end of this, where the town board's got to make a decision. The village, I think, is set for public hearing and voting to opt out. I don't know what they did as far as presentations from Janine. Did they? Did they have a presentation from you?
No.
Okay. And they're a separate municipality. They can choose their means of due diligence leading up to what they're doing. I'm being redundant. We chose the option of the pro and the con. We went con first, pro second. Charlie, I would assume it might be as early as Thursday at the board meeting that will, Thursday the 18th, maybe advertise for the public hearing on December 2nd.
Yeah, that's public, right, that would be public hearing for local law, that's correct.
And that's as early, I think, as we could do. Funny thing is, that's the earliest we could do, probably December 2nd. And then the latest we could do is December 16th. Because then we're out of board meetings.
Unless we
do a special. Yeah, so stay tuned, everybody.